Hi, I'm Cliff, and this is my garage, which I'm currently renovating. It has a 10-foot ceiling, and I just bought a two-post car lift that's 12 feet tall. It's not as stupid as it sounds. Man, I sure hope it's not as stupid as it sounds. Hey, welcome back to the garage. And if this is your first time joining me, thanks for dropping by. So, like I was saying, I am renovating my garage. We're going to be creating a whole new space in here. We've been insulated and we're putting up finish on the walls inside here. Partly is what's going to house our business, which is outgrowing our house. And it's going to be taking up some of the space in here. And also the other portion where I wanted to expand and create a new area for working on cars. The rest of the building is dedicated to woodworking, metalworking, things, just general shop use. The total building square foot is about 2,100 square feet. So one thing I've always wanted is a two-post car lift, just to make it easier to work on cars. The older I get, the more nervous I am about being up under a car that's on jack stands. It's an uncomfortable experience to start with, and I would just really rather have a two-post lift. Now, I looked around a lot, and one problem I had was that this garage has a 10-foot ceiling. Now, with hindsight, I wish, well, 15 years ago, I had built this with a 12-foot ceiling. It would have been nice a lot of times if this were just simply a taller ceiling, but I didn't. So I was looking for a two-post car lift that would fit in here, and I just kept running into a problem of the car lifts that I could find that would fit in a 10-foot ceiling just didn't have the features I wanted, or there were other things I didn't like about it, or issues. Basically, there are two kinds of two-post car lifts. One is called a floor plate model, and this is where there are two freestanding columns, and they're connected by a plate or a channel that runs on the floor. And this is where the hydraulic lines and the synchronization cables that keep the two lift cradles in sync, those run along the floor. And these floor plates or floor channels are about 2 inches thick, which means that they're kind of in the way. You can't roll a tool cart through there. You can't roll a transmission jack or an engine cradle or anything like that. Plus, I know myself, I'm going to be constantly stumbling over it. So I really didn't want to get a floor plate model. Now, the other type is called a clear floor model, which, as the name implies, the floor is clear. In this case, that floor plate, that channel where the lines and the cables run, is on top of the lift. It goes in between and it ties together the two columns. This would be great. This is exactly what I would like to do. The problem is finding one that would fit in a 10-foot garage. I did find a few. In particular, there were several models from Unpack that would fit in a 10-foot garage. The problem I had with those is that most, like I said, the channel on the floor plate, is about 2 inches thick. And when you go to a clear floor model, the channel that goes along the top is also about 2 inches deep. Well, for some reason on the Unpack model, they put a very big beam on the top. I don't know why, but the bottom line is that this beam is about 9 inches. So by the time you put on the little bar, the little safety bar and everything, you're losing about a foot of lift height. Well, I've only got a 10-foot ceiling to start with. Giving up a foot was just too much, especially because I have a couple cars that are fairly tall. So I kind of pushed the Unpack models out of the way and said, well, okay, those won't work, and I continued on my search. I wanted to find a more normal style of two-post clear floor lift but 10 feet or less. Actually, the ceiling here is actually like 10 foot 1 inches. Unfortunately, I just couldn't find one. And so I began thinking about, well, do I even really want a floor plate model? And I just kind of said, well, forget it. I put aside the idea of getting a 2-post lift, and I really started kind of investigating things like the quick jack. I could have that name completely wrong. I will put the correct name in the notes on the bottom. They make a cool little system, which is 2 independent like scissor lift pieces that it's all portable, and it's really nice. It just doesn't lift the car very high. I think it lifts at about 2 feet. And there was another one. It's a portable unit where you drill holes in the floor. It's like a clear floor lift, but it doesn't have the beam across the top. It's like a hybrid of the two. Again, it doesn't have very much of a lift, and it's a little clumsy to use, but I sort of think, well, maybe I'd go with that. But I really pretty much kind of pushed the idea aside as something it just wasn't going to happen, because I also wanted some other features, like, for instance, a single point safety release. When you lift up a car, you lift a little further than you want, and then you drop down onto a point where it locks. It's a safety lock point. And then when you're done working on the car, you lift it up a little bit and you release those locks, and now you can bring the car back down. Well, there's 2 different ways this works. One is a 2-point release, which is where you go unhook each lock independently or individually. And that would mean, well, it's just kind of a pain. Plus, there's the tiny little danger of walking back and forth under the car once you've unlocked one side. You can walk all the way around, but I know of myself, I wouldn't end up doing that. The opposite is a single point release, where you're on one side, you lift the car up, you pull one lever, and it unlocks both of the safety latches, and then you can lower the car down. I really wanted one of those. I also wanted something called a super symmetric arm, which is a particular type of lift arm. There's asymmetric, symmetric, and super symmetric. And the super symmetric is something that I wanted. And they escaped me. There was 1 or 2 other features that I was interested in getting. I just could not find them in a lift that would fit in a 10-foot ceiling. So bottom line, I kind of gave up on the whole thing. A week or 2 later, I woke up in the middle of the night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, and as I often do, my mind starts spinning on whatever issues I'm dealing with at that time. And I started thinking about this issue with the lift. And suddenly it came to me. Just because I have a 10-foot ceiling doesn't mean I can't put a 12-foot lift in here. The lifts I wanted were all at least 12 feet. And I had seen several, well, slightly under 12 feet. I had seen a couple, maybe 3, that had the features I wanted or were close, and they were all like 11 foot 10. And I started thinking, I think I know how I can do this. I'm going to remove the insulation from this section of the ceiling, and then I'm going to go up in there and frame in what basically would almost like a skylight opening, except there's no skylight at the top. The sole purpose of this little well I'm going to build is to allow the 12-foot lift to poke up past the 10-foot ceiling, and it should work fine, right? Okay, so that's the plan. Doesn't sound so stupid anymore, does it? So step 1 in this process was to get as much clear ceiling height as I could, so that I could lift the cars as high as possible. Now, the problem I had was that I had installed a traditional ceiling mount garage door opener. It was hanging right here in the middle, hanging down about 1.5 foot, and then, of course, there's a connection that runs over and grabs at the top of the door and picks it up by pulling on it. Well, I wanted to get rid of that, and I found an answer, and that is what's called a side mount, or I think some people refer to it as a jack shaft opener. What this is a motor that mounts over here on the side of the door. Normally, this thing up here, called the torsion bar, it's loaded with spring tension, and there are cables that run down the sides, and it helps pick the door up so that the lift doesn't have to, the garage door opener doesn't have to work so hard. Well, what a wall mount opener does is it connects directly to the torsion bar and turns it to lift the door up. Completely out of the way, I now have a completely clear ceiling. We're good to go in that department. All right, so the next step in this process was to actually purchase the lift and have it shipped to me. I settled on an Atlas 90 HSC, had all the features I wanted and at a very reasonable price. So I found a couple of places that sold it that I felt comfortable buying from. One was garageautomotiveequipment.com. What a mouthful. Garageautomotiveequipment.com had it at $2,100. Pretty good price, lowest I found on the internet. There were a couple other places that sold it at the same price. They just looked a little bit sketchy to me, so I passed on buying it from them. Now, the other place was a very good outfit with a good reputation called gregsmithautomotive.com. I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. And they're located here in Florida. Both companies very good on their helpfulness and in terms of pre-sale support by email. Garageautomotiveequipment.com was maybe a hair slow, but both were fine. It really boiled down to price. Garage Automotive Equipment sold the lift for $2,100, shipping included. gregsmithautomotive.com also shipped with shipping included. However, their price was a little higher, and they're located in Florida, which is where I live, so there would be sales tax involved. Ultimately, it boiled down to garageautomotiveequipment.com was about $400 cheaper. I contacted gregsmithautomotive.com, asked them if they would match the price of the lift, but not. I didn't expect them to waive the sales tax, but they were not willing to do that, and that's okay. Understandable business decision. They offered a different lift, which would have worked out to about the same price, but it was not super symmetric. It was not single point release. It just didn't have the features I was looking for. So I went ahead and purchased from garageautomotiveequipment.com, and I was kind of concerned that it would take a little longer to get here coming from California and have to travel further, more possibility of damage. But it turns out that they simply drop ship it direct from Atlas, and probably just about every other place does this also. And it turns out at Atlas, at least the distribution center that I got mine from, is right up in Georgia. So the lift got here quickly anyway. Now, one issue I faced was that the road I live on is unpaved. My driveway is concrete, but the road itself is unpaved. Semis can get in here to deliver things, but I can't take my forklift out onto a dirt road. It's not an all-terrain forklift. So normally what I would do is I would put a pair of forklift attachments onto my front end loader of my tractor, go out and pick the pallet up off the truck. I do this all the time. However, the 1,400-pound weight of the lift package coming in is just a bit too much. I can't quite lift that much with my front end loader. So what I had them do, and apparently it's fairly common because it was offered right there when you on the website, you can tell them, all right, buying this lift, ship it to me, but tell the trucking line to hold the package at the terminal and I'll come pick it up, which is about probably 15 miles away from my house. So that was great. Set it all up. It's on its way. I get notification that it's ready. It'll be delivered and ready to be picked up. And then I realize that my big trailer has a problem. I can't use it right now. So no problem. I just jump on the U-Haul website. There's a place right here in a little tiny town that rents U-Haul equipment, and rented a box truck. And I was looking at the various trucks, and they don't have a whole big selection local where we're at, but they did have small box truck, they listed it as I think 15 feet, and they said the bed was 12 feet. So there's a little extra part that pokes up to get the 15, but the actual floor space, I said, was 12 feet 5 inches. Well, the lift is 12 feet 2 inches. And you would think, all right, a 12-foot 5-inch truck, you can fit a 12-foot 2-inch package into it, right? So I rented the truck, get it all set up, and when I got to the depot and they started loading it, I realized that I was mistaken. Apparently, you cannot fit a 12-foot 2-inch package into a 12-foot 5-inch truck. The way that U-Haul defines the size of their vehicles is that it's from the very front edge of the floor in the box truck all the way out to the very tail end of the deck outside the door. So there are several inches that really, if you want to use them, you can't close the door. That's what happened. Got the thing all the way in, pushed it all the way to the front, and I could not close the door. No big deal. I just got the lift strapped in place, pulled the door down, strapped the door down, and I was good to go. But just keep in mind, U-Haul has a somewhat unique way to define the size of their trucks. So once we got the lift home in the truck, then it was time to get it out, which turned into another bit of an adventure. We had to reach in with the forklift, pick it up, and put some blocking underneath it. So then I could come back in with the front end loader, kind of get underneath it, hook to it with a chain, and slide the lift almost all the way out. So now that it was suspended between the truck and the tractor, I could get under it with a pallet with the forklift and pick it up and go set it in the driveway for a couple of days. Yeah, I wasn't worried about it walking off because it weighs 1,400 pounds. So I think we're ready to get started. I'm going to go grab the forklift, use it to pick up the new 2-post lift, and bring it on into the garage. Okay, first impressions, really good. It seems well packed, it's well protected, lots of bubble wrap and cardboard. Everything seems secure and, more importantly, looks like good quality. So let's keep unpacking. Man, these arms are heavy. It's time for the hydraulic cart. Looking everywhere for my box knife, right in my pocket. All right, say what you like, they did not skimp on these bolts. Okay, so I've made an error here, not a big one, but I really was not paying attention. The bottom of this column, because it's got this big heavy mechanism down here, also because the carriage is on this end. This end is way heavier than the other end. I wasn't really paying attention. That's why these two columns are packaged with their ends swapped, so that the heavy end of the top one is on this end, the heavy end of the bottom one's on the other, to balance the overall package. So I've got to take the forklift back it out of here, and then come in probably more like here to grab it. That's probably more like its balance point. Maneuvering these arms out of that channel is a bit tricky. This Ingersoll Rand impact wrench, this titanium 2235, is one of the best tools I ever bought. I'll give you a link to it. Okay, that was what I was afraid of. The balance point again is way down this way. I'm gonna have to go get the forklift, pick this thing up, and get the pallet repositioned underneath it. You know, I think I can just pick this thing up, set another block underneath it. Yep, that worked. Having a hard time making up my mind, aren't I?